As one of the most beloved characters in all of fiction, Spider-Man sits right up there with the likes of Superman, Batman, and the greatest of them all, the future Pirate King himself, Luffy, and very few things can further solidify its presence in that upper echelon like a great movie franchise. For Spider-Man, it's actually been done several times over. You have Sam Raimi's godly trilogy from the early 2000s, the Amazing Spider-Man duo in the early 2010s that had their flaws but were still a pretty huge deal, the MCU's ongoing Spider-Man series, and not to mention the Spider-Verse movies, which so far are my personal favorite. As you can see, the franchise is not lacking when it comes to the big screen, but for those who are truly in the know, the real way to solidify a character and greatness is to create a great video game franchise. And when that's done, that's how you know you're truly here to stay. Unfortunately, before Spider-Man's PlayStation 4 debut, Batman was the only one of those previously mentioned upper echelon characters that truly managed to accomplish that top tier video game status with the Arkham series. I mean, I've heard people sing the praises of a few Spider-Man games here and there, like Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Web of Shadows, and even the Ultimate Spider-Man game, but nothing transcendent came out of that lineup until Marvel's Spider-Man released in September 2018 by Insomniac Games. This game had so much hype before its release that a bunch of losers on the internet who had no maidens,
Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
legitimately got upset because a few minor and ultimately inconsequential changes were made to the final product compared to its E3 gameplay in 2017. This whole controversy would infamously be dubbed Puddlegate, and all its detractors would be forced to shut the f up because from day one, Marvel's Spider-Man would prove to be near flawless. I played the game when it first released and enjoyed it so thoroughly, my roommates in college did not see me for days at a time. It was scary how much I got into it. However, that was a long time ago, and while I played the City Never Sleeps DLCs that came out after its release, I really didn't have a reason to get back into it until Miles Morales came out in 2020, a game that we'll get into in another video. With its sequel around the corner, I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit Marvel's Spider-Man once again and talk about why I personally feel it deserves all its flowers and its haters, because sometimes where there's haters, there's something truly special. I'll go ahead and get this out the way now. The undisputed biggest reason why the game is so well regarded is the fact that it gets the most important thing in any Spider-Man game correct, the web swinging. In fact, I could even say that when you're playing the game,
Say the line, Bart!
it truly feels like you're Spider-Man. Especially with the swinging. I know that phrase has been said more times than I can count, but that's only because it's true. Just look at this. That's about as Spider-Man as any Spider-Man game is going to get before Spider-Man 2. In defense of its predecessors, I know nothing about game design, so I'm pretty sure that web swinging is not something remotely easy to get right, and that's why so many other Spider-Man games have missed the mark before this. But that serves as a testament to just how much of an accomplishment it was for Insomniac Games to be the ones who finally did it. To anyone familiar with their previous work, Sunset Overdrive, an underrated game that went under a lot of people's radar, served as an indicator that Insomniac knew what they were doing when it comes to traversal. Even then, that's only the most important part of Marvel's Spider-Man in my opinion. There is much more to it that makes it worth sinking hours into. It starts from the regular gameplay, where you can swing around the city fighting different types of crime along the way as you travel from mission to mission. There's general robbery that you have to put to an end by beating the shit out of some criminals, bomb threats where you're tasked with beating the shit out of some criminals, but having to disarm their bombs afterwards, and even stolen car chases where you're tasked with stopping the vehicles before then beating the shit out of everyone involved. Plus, plenty more that I haven't even touched on. If it sounds repetitive, I promise you it isn't, at least not for a very, very long while, because combat is another very strong point of the game. Taking very careful notes from the Arkham series, fighting as Spider-Man in this game feels exhilarating as you can really get to dish out a lot of punishment to your opponents. There's a variety of ways that you can go about it as well, seeing as you can do it on the ground, in the air, or with different gadgets you can choose from. A notable inclusion to the combat is your Spidey senses, where you're given a window of time to counter incoming attacks in several different ways, and it serves as one of the game's highlights, as it was with the Arkham series. You have options, and even to this day, it's a great time. And I know Spider-Man constantly says he's pulling his punches, but with some of these takedowns, I find that kind of hard to believe. Yeah, those guys are dead, or at least close to it. There's also a healthy variety of enemies to fight, from regular thugs, inmates, and goons to powered up quote-unquote demons and Sable International mercenaries whom I despise from the bottom of my soul. The only thing that I would consider a weakness in the combat would be the boss fights. While some of them can be entertaining, they're mostly just functional, and you can tell the game isn't really built for encounters like that, not to the same extent at least. Even the stealth gameplay is sound if that's more your playstyle. One of my favorite things to do is make a guy turn around just to make his homeboy go missing when he's not looking. Just to be clear, when I say stealth gameplay, I specifically mean just with Spider-Man, and not the sequences where you're playing as Mary Jane or Miles. Those are terrible and legitimately made me dread having to play through them again.
He just refuses. Just try a little taste.
Don't just stare at it, eat it.
Sake, man, you're amateur.
I can't.
The game is fleshed out with side missions you can enjoy within the course of the main story that aren't the best side missions I've ever played, but they go a long way towards showing Spider-Man is a hero for the people. Spider-Man also gets the little things right, such as its homages to the comic books that are highlighted in various scenes in the game that offered up Insomniac's take on them in the most respectful ways possible.
Totally worked last time.
As well as the little backpack tokens that give little snippets of Peter's life leading up to the start of the game.
When MJ and I applied for this lease, I thought we'd move in together. Instead, we broke up. I can be pretty oblivious sometimes.
There's also locations on Insomniac's fantastic recreation of Manhattan, not only referencing actual places there, but also locations relevant to Marvel as a whole. Even J. Jonah Jameson is constantly berating you in his podcast as you swing around the city like the professional hater he is. What's a good Spider-Man story without Triple J? That's how I feel, right?
Not Martin Lee. I do blame Martin Lee. He deserves swift justice, but he's a lunatic terrorist. This is what they do. Whereas Spider-Man claims to be a hero. Yet he obviously knew about the threat and didn't warn us. He either thought he'd handled it, which makes him criminally negligent, or he was in on it, which makes him a terrorist too.
Speaking of the story, as I mentioned in my last video on Cyberpunk 2077, I'm a certified narrative junkie, and the story of Marvel's Spider-Man is nothing but true to the character in almost every way. You have life constantly kicking Peter Parker's ass.
Fight back! Fight back! Fight back!
Seemingly punishing his personal life for choosing to protect the city as Spider-Man, seeing as he isn't even able to properly maintain his job doing what he loves the most, while also serving as the thing that creates tension in his relationships, most notably with Mary Jane.
Okay. And not okay. What is there to figure out?
Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but the foundations are there. Many aspects of this game's story that make it great are the very same things that make Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 so compelling to watch. It really puts into perspective the quote-unquote reality of being a superhero and the fact that it must be unimaginably difficult to have any sort of hero-life balance, something that a more general character like Superman isn't often depicted as having to deal with. The story truly kicks Peter Parker's And it's not like I enjoy watching people suffer, but the character Spider-Man's strength lies in his ability to overcome these challenges and still choose to help people every single day. Even when he's battered, bruised, and on his last legs, he will still do the right thing, and that demands respect. The game starts you off with an already seasoned Peter Parker in his mid-20s, still poorly juggling his responsibilities as Spider-Man and his personal life as Dr. Octavius' research assistant. By this point, his relationship with Mary Jane has already failed, and Peter is trying his best to mend it piece by piece. He quickly goes from doing the salsa on that line called balance to barely holding on by a web that'll soon break apart when finally taking down Wilson Fisk opens the floodgates to hell on Manhattan after Martin Lee and Dr. Octavius, two men who have deeply suffered at the hands of Mayor Norman Osborn, finally see their opportunities for vengeance and take action, reaching into the depths of their anger and resorting to the darkest sides of their character to achieve their goals.
Fight it, Martin! You can walk away!
No! Osborn must suffer!
No matter what the cost. You can see the conflict in Martin Lee's face as he realizes what he's going to have to sacrifice, and the downfall of Dr. Octavius as he's continuously being f***ed over by Norman Osborn.
The grant agreement you signed has strict safety provisions. This isn't your first violation.
Those were excused.
By me. We should have confiscated this equipment long ago.
All while suffering from a degenerative neurological disorder. The game lets you understand these characters, but doesn't overcomplicate the line between righteous justice and just plain doing the wrong thing. All of this culminates in an emotional ending where the entirety of Manhattan goes to shit, and Peter is forced to put down his mentor and friend as you watch him come to terms with the fact that Octavius is just too far gone.
And of course, you rest easy, knowing your secret is safe with me.
You do what you think is best, Doc. It's all any of us can.
Peter?
Even when it hurts like hell.
Peter, where are you going? Peter? Peter!
Marvel's Spider-Man even introduces Miles Morales and gives him an important role in the storyline, setting him up for his own more condensed but more impressive game and future involvement in the upcoming sequel. The actors playing these characters were really in their bags as well, highlighted by Sasuke himself, Yuri Lowenthal, and Trunks aka Laura Bailey. Especially Yuri, who used his role as the opportunity to make his case as the definitive video game Spider-Man, and if you ask me, I really can't think of anyone else who's a better fit for the role off the top of my head after playing this game. Even now, 5 years after its release, days before the release of its sequel, Spider-Man stands the test of time and is worth jumping back into if you want to experience Insomniac's take on the character of Peter Parker and the wonderful world created by Marvel. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more wonderful video game content. I'll see you in the next one.